If you or someone you know is struggling with alcoholism or addiction, do not hesitate to reach out for help. You can find numerous free resources on our website, thebeginagainpodcast.com, and there are tons of resources and support networks available online, in person, or just a phone call away. You don't have to face this challenge alone. Welcome to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes. On the Begin Again podcast, we delve into the inspiring journeys of individuals who have overcome alcoholism and addiction and emerged as true trailblazers in entrepreneurship, business, sports, and beyond. Through authentic, uplifting, and profound conversations with our guests, we aim to shatter the stigma surrounding addiction and demonstrate that recovery can be a catalyst for remarkable success, strength, and resilience. We firmly believe that by listening to these accounts, you will be empowered to unlock your own potential, instigate positive change in your life, and contribute to the creation of a better world. So, get ready to be inspired and embark on your own personal journey of growth with the Begin Again podcast. Welcome back to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes, and joining us today is a man who's on a mission to encourage you to travel the world, to celebrate life, and create amazing memories and experiences, all while living a life of sobriety. A man who embraces his inner wanderlust, the Nomadic Addict, Zac Spowart. How are you, Zach? Thanks for being here.
That's quite the introduction, buddy. I gotta say, I'm glad this is being recorded. I think I'm gonna listen to that a couple more times. That's quite impressive. I'm really good. I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's funny. I was looking forward to this. I've been watching and following you. We met a couple of weeks ago on the good old World Wide Web that we have, and you and I kind of hit it off right away. I apologize for I had a couple of missteps, but I'm glad you're here, buddy. And we have similar sober dates. We're sober brothers. We'd say we're both 17 plus years, right? Your sober date's November, correct?
Yes, sir. November 28, 2006. 17 and change.
Unbelievable, right? God bless you, man. It's amazing. So, where'd you grow up? Tell us, how was it growing up for Zach?
Yeah. So, I mean, the more or less, a simple story of it. I grew up in Monterey, California. It's like central northern California, south of San Francisco. Nice area. A lot of people, tourist area. A bit foggy, but I recommend people checking it out if they get a chance. Yeah, beautiful. There's nothing wrong with the spot. My dad's a doc. My mom's an artist up there, and good family, still together. I was just visiting them, and they're good people, and some people have that story of broken home, and I feel for that too, and others don't have that at all. Looking for what is that one thing that was the seed that shifted everything. And I remember my parents talking to me about that too. Like, what happened? What did we do? And it's like, I don't know that you did or didn't do anything. I think it's just kind of one of those things, that's why I give that preface. Like, Monterey is a beautiful area. My family is together. Like, I have an older sister, younger brother. Like, sometimes, for excuse my language, shit happens, right? Like, it just is what it is. Like,
we all got our own journeys, our own path.
Amen. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Pretty good home life for the most part. In a good home. I still go home and visit them. I was just there before, being in Hawaii now, like we talked about, a bit of traveling around the nomad life. And anyway, so a bit of a small piece of the story there for you.
Yeah, no, I love it. So when would you say, when did things start getting, start turning? When did whatever the seed was? You're right. It doesn't always have to be that, similar story. We all have our own stories. We all have our own reasons, our own paths, like I had said. When did you start realizing and where did it take you? Where did some of the darkness take you?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I think for me, I was told my whole life, like, you have an alcoholic personality, Zach, or not alcoholic, excuse me, an addictive personality, which is synonymous, which is probably why I slipped right there. You have an addictive personality, and I think I'm very high energy. I'm very excitable, a blessing and a curse. I can run really high anxiety, and I just have this, people nickname me the Energizer Bunny. And it's all a blessing. It's all a gift. I mean, for me, I've had to learn to embrace that. But as a younger kid growing up, 13, 14, 15, what have you, is just a lot, period, of emotions. The world was highly stimulating. We hear this idea of, some alcoholics and addicts identify with this idea of being sensitive, which I use that in quotations because that's, a word that's used a lot, and that can mean any number of things. But I identify with that. I do think that empathetically or just existence as a whole, not to sound dramatic, but felt heavy. It felt
Yeah.
like, I don't know, there was this sense of like I could just feel an extra heaviness, just kind of being, and an excitability of the world and just all of it. And it got to be a bit much at an early age. I mean, go figure, right? Hard to imagine that, a 13-year-old or whatever, a 15-year-old would be have the weight of the world on their shoulders. But for
It's
some
real.
reason, yeah, for some reason, my anxiety was extremely elevated. I started getting sick to my stomach, and I would throw up, and nobody knew what was wrong with me. I thought I had ulcers. I thought I had all this stuff, and they're trying to give me like high powered Tums basically to settle my stomach, and I'm taking it thinking, why isn't it working?
Yep.
Um, and then eventually, I just started, met a girl and she introduced me to alcohol, and I just noticed that it sort of quieted the mind and it calmed the belly. And I'm like, wow, this is it. This is my solution. Like we talk about
Yeah.
in AA, we touched on the 12 steps as being a part of my journey before
Sure.
the show. And so I'll touch on that a little bit here on the recording. But
Yeah, please.
yeah, there is that element of like part of my solution. Like, alcohol was my solution for a time.
No
Now
doubt.
AA and the 12 steps are my solution to replace that. But alcohol stopped working. But for a time, it did work. That's why I used it. Stopped working, which is why I don't use it. But we'll get into that a bit more too.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially the darkness came from just sort of that rapid progression, which
Sure.
it was a pretty short-lived alcoholic life for me. I got sober at 21. I'm 38 now, which was not by design. Most 21-year-olds are not trying to get sober.
Yeah.
But I started drinking really with authority around probably 15. And yeah, I just got into trouble really quick, man. I say my higher power showed up in the form of a police officer and a few times. So yeah, I was blessed in that regard.
Well,
Minor possession, lost a license, DUI, lost a license, and then
mm,
last one was a DUI with accident and injury to my little brother. He actually fractured his neck, and I'd done some jail time there, and um, that led to felony probation, 5 years in LA, felony like I was around like murderers and rapists in Monterey County Jail in Salinas, and I'd like to say that that's actually what got me sober, but right after I got out of jail, the first thing I did was go drink. So that didn't really do it, but the legal consequences definitely did because I had no choice but to get sober and stay sober. And
yeah.
um, anyway, that's a
No,
sort of
hey,
the short
listen,
story of
no,
what
I
happened.
love it. I can relate to so much of it. The trouble, me too. I got in trouble early on, 16, 16 years old, the first time, assaulting a police officer, first degree felony,
Wow,
bad stuff, right off the bat. And DWIs, more assaults as I got older, another DWI, just multiple disorderly conducts, just,
wow.
I was kind of chuckling at myself when you said that your higher power showed up in the form of a police officer. I was like, man, I wish I was aware of that when I was like 16. That might have helped things. But you said
Yeah.
21 years old, Zach, when you became sober. And I remember being in meetings in New York City. And even to this day, when I see a young man like real like 21 years old and they're in the meeting, I admire them so much because they're
Mm,
so ahead of the game. Like they're
mm,
'cause you're a young guy at 21, and I had a long way to go. I was 26 the first time I went, first time I ever went to a meeting. It was in a rehab upstate New York. I haven't got,
wow.
but I was in and out for 4 years. I got sober at 31. So those 4 years were very difficult, as there's the old saying, a belly full of booze and a mind full of sobriety, mindful AA is a difficult
Yeah,
to be. And that's how it was for me 4 years. But 21 years old, man, I admire that so much. I think it's a beautiful thing. But yeah,
thanks,
right,
man.
you get on the trouble, right? But we need to find our path is our path, right? And I was also
Absolutely, man.
chuckling too, like sorry to say, but as a true alcoholic, the first thing you do
Yeah.
is go out and you go and get yourself a drink, right?
100%, man. I was with another guy that had three DUIs. I had had two, and I remember finishing off his 40. We went and we got 40s like 11 o'clock at night. I was in the ripped up pajamas from the accident I was in, freezing. I think I even bummed a jacket off of somebody in the liquor, like just outside of the liquor store. And literally, I mean, if that wasn't if that wasn't indicative of where alcohol was about to take me,
Yeah.
and the fact that it didn't even occur to me at the time. I'm literally in ripped up clothes. I'm so grateful and have no shame about asking like a total stranger for a shirt or a
Mm.
jacket because I'm cold. And my priority is to go get loaded and to drink, outside of a liquor store, basically near a dumpster, with another person who just had three DUIs, who I'm actually drinking more than him. It's just crazy. And this is at 21 years old. I'm thinking to myself like, oh, this is normal. Like, how is it normal? It's just insane that that's like where it took me.
Yeah, it's amazing the things that we think are normal, right? And then we hear them in the
Yeah.
rooms all the time. That's why, like, when people tell these crazy, outrageous stories, like we laugh about them because we relate to them. Like, yeah, we get it. I get it, everything you're saying. And I was the last person to, well, maybe I was the last person to realize I had a drinking problem. Let me tell you that. I mean, I
Mm,
was stubborn as they come. But then it did dawn on me after, quite some time. I got a problem with this. I'm gonna have to try to figure something out. But I just kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it. In fact, I remember I heard this in a room actually recently in sobriety that, I was engaged in a battle every single day and I didn't even know it. And like that was
yeah.
me in those 4 years in and out. Like that is just it was just such a battle. And just doing just absolutely absurd behavior constantly, and your morals get lower standard as you go, the lower you go, and
Mm,
you think you're this kind of good person. And my girlfriend, remember, she told me at the time, same girlfriend I had told you about, she's my wife today, she's the one who told me, Gary, actions speak louder than words. All right, so you can
hmm.
think you're some kind of good guy, and maybe you are somewhere underneath it, but your step guys
Yeah.
get lost, and
Yeah.
your actions are completely different from who you think or who you want to be. But not today, right?
Wow.
That's not how it is
Yeah.
today.
No, no, I applaud your wife, man. She sounds like she's got a good head on her shoulders, and she's bang on about that for sure. And I try to remember that myself. Remind myself of that. Some people be like, oh, like that's it's hard to imagine you being like that, or oh, that's
Yeah.
not really who you are. And
Mm.
I'll correct them. I'll say like, no, that's exactly who I am.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when I drink. Like it's not about dismissing it. That doesn't necessarily do me any good. AA says it's, we don't regret the past, nor do we wish to shut the door on it, right? So it's
Yes.
a friendly reminder for me that like yeah, a lot of times people don't want to speak from a place of I, but I don't want to necessarily look at the things that I've done in the past that can make me feel bad. Nobody wants to feel bad.
Right.
And if I don't remind myself of that, like I'm potentially destined to repeat the same mistakes. So I need to recognize that when I drink, that's where it takes me, whether I want to or not, whether I'm a good person, quote unquote, or not. What are my actions? You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. What are my
No,
actions?
no doubt. It
Yeah.
reminds me, I say this, I honest to God, I say this to myself often, and the term has changed in sobriety, but it's, to me, when I'm talking to myself, like, don't forget where you came from, and when I say,
Mm,
like, don't forget where you were 18 years ago, because 18 years
mm,
ago, you were in a bad place and you were on a different path and you were going
mm-hmm.
nowhere fast on a good day. You and I have been sober almost 18 years, right? And yeah, no one
Yep.
wants to go back. I have to remember that. Otherwise, I can have this little built-in forgetter in my mind. And, how
Yep.
bad was it? And I've had those conversations with myself, Zach. Like, how bad was it? You know what? I'm a different guy now. Like, I've got a lot of education on all this now. I bet you I can be a little bit different. And the truth of that is I can play the tape in my head and it's an ugly tape, and I maybe
Mm,
will sit here and take a sip of something. Maybe I'll be okay tonight. Maybe not.
yep.
But
Yep.
sometime, whether it's tomorrow or next week, it'll be a lot sooner than I think. I will be right back to where I was. And we talk about like, fear all the time. One of my, I think, healthiest fears is I know I have another go out in me. I don't know if I have another recovery in me. And now I got two young ones that I got more people that count on me. So I'm,
Nice, man.
yeah, no. So tell us,
Congrats.
how did you start turning things around? You're a young man. Again, I admire it so much. What got you into the rooms? It sounds like you found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, congrats on the kiddos, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm not there yet, but maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah.
What got me to the rooms was honestly the legal consequences. I mean, they talk about external motivation versus internal motivation, And what's cool about that, and maybe it's changed, I'm going off of old data from my schooling years back, but I remember them saying in my schooling at Hazen Betty Ford, it was like, I think I told you earlier, I did, they're a treatment facility, but they also offer a master's program for addiction counseling. And I went back and did that there, which was
Amazing.
super cool. Side tangent, not meant to be a plug for them, but just part of my experience. Really, like I learned that it doesn't necessarily matter external motivation or internal motivation. Ultimately, you can't be forced into treatment by legal consequences and and have success, which is a large part of what my story is about. You could go in there because you want to go in there, and you're like, "Oh, my life is just not good," and come out without success. Still pick up a drink. So
Yeah.
I like that you touched on that idea of the tape that you play out in your head, and recognizing that, playing out the tape. If someone's listening and they haven't heard that before, it's pretty common terminology, but I definitely celebrate that and support that. This idea of, if you are thinking about picking up a drink or using a drug, playing that tape out in the sense of, where is it going to take me, has saved me countless times.
Mm.
And I do stand by, just to touch on what you said earlier, and I'll get into your question, like, because it was pretty profound. It's something I think about, and I talk to some of my friends that are newly sober about too. Is they're like, well, how do you stay sober? And it's like, well, the truth is, like, whether or if they like the term alcoholic or not, some people are really afraid of that word. I don't really care, to be
Not
honest.
me.
Like, call me whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. You're not alcoholic, you are alcoholic. What difference does it make,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's you're 6 foot, you're 5'10", whatever. Who cares? Like, plus minus an inch, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The point is, like, what is a drink going to give me? That's really the simplistic way of how I look at life today. Okay, if I have a Sam Adams, and just throwing out a random example, or a shot of, whatever, it's okay. It probably adds a few calories to my diet, a little bit of carbohydrates, and what do I get? Maybe I get a little bit of a buzz. Maybe I don't. Like, what does it truly actually add? And versus what is the risk? Like, what could it potentially take away? And I just don't know that I ever find it really adding anything of tremendous benefit, even if I try to go out of my way to argue for it. Like,
Mm.
okay, maybe I'm gonna be a little funnier. Maybe I'll be a little bit, more sociable. Maybe. Again, I'm trying to argue for here.
Right.
I'm sure you can tell by the way I'm talking already. I'll yap anyone's head off. So I don't even know that I need it. And for some people, that's the whole thing. Is it's like, I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful for somebody, whether you're playing the tape out there or not. Just measuring out sort of the scales, as it were, of like, what does this add? What could this truthfully bring to my life? And more often than not, I think it's pretty easy to find. It probably doesn't really bring anything outside of, like I said, some calories and maybe some mischief, and maybe a hangover or toxin. Yeah, not so good. So anyway, that's something that you touched on that I wanted to touch on as well, because
Oh, I appreciate that.
I've noticed a lot of people that are early in recovery, when I do have these conversations, most specifically a friend of mine that's got 6 months, we were talking on a trip recently. He was talking to me about it, and that's come up quite a bit. So I hope that that's helpful for somebody out there. And forgive me, am I rambling? I already forgot the question you just asked me, so I'm
No,
gonna have to
no,
ask you to repeat it
I love
again.
that. I'm not even sure. I forget myself. Actually. But no, it was a good, it's a good, we were talking about don't forget where you came from and all that stuff as well. But,
Yeah,
it's an important thing. I like what you said also just now, which, the simplicity, keep it simple, stupid, KISS.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
I bring that like in so many avenues of my life, like because we all can, but I'll speak for myself always. Like I can overcomplicate things so quick, and so I'll look at a
Absolutely.
project or something, and I'll KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Hmm.
It's usually the
Yeah,
simplest form. And when it comes to drinking, I was watching, I forget who it was, some celebrity, and he's sober. Forget his name, but he's like, I can't drink safely. Like most normal people, they can have a beer or a couple of beers or a glass of wine and they can be okay. He's like, but
yeah,
I can't. And he's just saying it. I'm like, I love the simplicity of this because that's
yep,
so me also. Like,
100%.
forget about all the trouble that I just talked about. Like, put that aside. Like, I never, ever drank safely, ever. And
Yep.
and I've said this before too, like on good days, like I was a young man, 20 something years old, a little younger than, a little older than you were at the time. when I was at my first real job, Zach, I was working on a Wall Street firm on a trading desk. I was trying to get on trade.
Wow.
I was in a support role. I was the only
Yep.
guy there without, everyone's surrounded by Ivy Leaguers and all this stuff. So I felt really uncomfortable as it was anyway.
Mm,
But, I was an alcoholic, a raging alcoholic at that point. And, again, like I said, take away the trouble. I remember sitting at my desk all day long talking to myself, like, I'm not going to go out tonight. I'm not going to go out tonight. I'm not going to go out tonight. And then, like, lunchtime comes, you feel a little bit better and like, yeah, but I'm not going to go out tonight. I'm not going to go out tonight. And then at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever, I'm out and I don't come home again. Like that is just, that's abnormal behavior. That's alcoholic.
100%.
And that's how I drank. And I need to remember that because that's how I drank. But I didn't realize that you had gone
Mm.
back to Betty Ford and you got a degree there. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Hazelden, now Hazelden Betty Ford, they've merged, but it was Hazelden at the time out
Yeah.
in Minnesota. And I don't consider myself a schooling person. That's why I touch on it. Like I'm not trying to sound hoity-toity or bragging here.
I
Although
love
I
it.
do think there's something to be said for celebrating the successes of recovery and sobriety brings. But yeah, my first master's, one of two, was addiction counseling with the focus on co-occurring disorders, and I definitely celebrate that. It was really cool to be out there. It was really cool to learn, seemingly from the cream of the crop, to where the publishing and the books come from, and one day at a time, and all this
Yes.
stuff is like
Got him here.
it's
Yeah.
all there. It's all there, dude. And the fact that Hazelden merged with Betty Ford, and is now Hazelden Betty Ford is says something really, really profound about that too. Is two of the biggest names probably in the original treatment facility business.
Absolutely. All right. I
It's
mean,
kind
synonymous with alcoholism for sure.
yeah,
Did you say you
yeah,
have
it's blown
multiple
up.
masters? You have multiple masters?
Yeah, I went back. I got a little burnout on treatment. Story
Yeah.
for another day, or this day if you want to get into that. But it basically, just treatment facility burnout from just seeing some things not necessarily running as ethical or as legitimate
Mm,
as I would hope, and
I'm sure.
trying different hats on and just trying different facilities and realizing that unfortunately a lot of them were just kind of the same, which is fine. It's their business and all that, but wasn't for me. So I went back and I got a master's in business from Pepperdine actually in the remote campus of Irvine when I lived in Orange County. And yeah, that really opened up a ton of doors for me, and it's led to, sort of a different mindset, a little bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. And, maybe will lead to something for Nomadic Addict. I have a goal in mind for it to eventually become a nonprofit to help sponsor people's travels, sober travels. But it's not there yet. I don't know when or if it will ever get there, to be honest. I got some other things I do to kind of help pay the bills and fund my own travels. But that would be a long-term goal for me to really support and encourage those that can benefit from shifting, their whole lives. I mean, some people just need to get just an opportunity to see the world differently, a new pair of glasses, right? Similar, not just
Very
for
blessed.
getting sober, but sometimes literally just being removed and tasting something a little bit different, whether it's a spice of India or a different culture, Buddhist mantra, or a buddy of mine that was going through a hard time, a divorce and a job loss, and he had 20 years sober. He was 40 something years old. He had a kid, and I told him to just come meet me in Hawaii, dude. And we did some shark diving and some free diving. He'd never done that before, and it's incredible. It's just shifted things for him tremendously, just that one trip. So it's
Yeah.
really cool, man.
No,
What
it
travel can bring.
sounds enormously cool. But this is why I like to talk to people like you, man, because here you are, you're 21 years old and you're doing some time, right? You had a couple of GW,
Yeah.
you're
Yep.
straggling outside by a dumpster, asking some strangers for clothes. 17 plus years later, you got the world ahead of it, world at in the palm of your hand. You have multiple master's degrees, and you
Yep.
got such a humbleness to you about you, man. And tell us what is the Nomadic Attic, and tell us where some of the places. I don't think we have enough time where all the places. Let's hear some of the spots you take people now.
Yeah, right on, dude, right on. So Nomadic Addict came about a couple years ago. Just kind of hit me as a catchy name. Unfortunately, the single T, some guy on Instagram has a single T. I don't even think he uses it. He's got like 100 followers, and I've written to him numerous times trying to get the single T, but it's not available, so I just let it go. So it's spelled with two T's, and I've had a few people point that out. Like, addict isn't spelled with two T's. I'm like, I know.
I
Like,
know
thank
exactly.
you, thank you for letting me know. But so it's Nomadic Addict with two T's, and I share that in a joking way for that reason. Can't always get what you want, but the name just kind of rang true. Like I've adopted this nomadic lifestyle. I don't necessarily know where things are going to take me, which is also very synonymous with my recovery and just sort of life in a nutshell. Not having to know. My sponsor told me that is step three. Faith is not needing to know. And I
Mm,
love that. Just a simplistic definition of faith. Like I don't have to have the answers. I don't have to know. And so the nomadic piece is very aligned with that. This is this idea of I don't have to know where life's going to take me today. Find myself here chatting with you in Hawaii and working with some people in treatment on this island that I never would have thought I ever would have met or been a part of. And I do live in Indonesia. Bali is what I call home now, and I never would have thought I would end up there. And I met another sober guy who teaches people to sail, and he packed up everything. Sounds similar to you. Was kind of a big Wall Street type guy and big moneymaker guy. Packed up his family, bought a sailboat and literally started sailing the world and just landed in Bali. So, and he inspired and encouraged and motivated me to take that jump. And so I know I'm a bit scattered here, but just answering your question directly, yeah, the name came about a couple of years ago in Bali. I do some work in the digital content space and the website space for a company called Addiction Recovery. It's that's what we do, some blogs and web pages for them, and
mm,
so that's a one thing that I have my fingers in, and it taught me how to build sites. So I took that education, that knowledge, and I have a very basic site put together for people to try to find me and hopefully encourage and support them to travel the world sober and to ask questions about how to do so. And I've had a few people reach out to me and go like, what are your services? I'm like, well, that's a good question. I don't actually even have any services, but I guess I could do some sober counseling or support. Mostly, I'm just trying to just encourage people to live a cool life, and maybe I should turn that into a service. I just haven't really done it yet, because I do think obviously people want to know how to do that, but yeah, so Bali, Mexico, we talked about my
yeah.
scuba diving's been a big part of my life. Ocean has been a huge part of my life, ocean conservation. I was afraid of sharks. I've gotten into some shark diving. That's been a tremendous part of my life. I
Wow.
got really into whale conservation, and cetaceans, marine mammals. And so I've swum with sperm whales, humpbacks. I just got back from a trip with Ocean Ramsey and her husband Juan in Dominica, the Caribbean, just before this, and that's again not a flex. That's like one of those things where like, dude, and if you don't know who Ocean Ramsey is, like, she's a big marine conservationist. She's one of the original pioneers of free diving with sharks, without a cage here off of North Shore, Hawaii, and we've got a couple million followers, and I'm just this, you know, guy that just got sober, that just decided that he liked the ocean and went on a couple trips and made a connection. And somewhere along the way, they were like, "Oh, you're a cool guy. Like, we should do a trip with you." And I'm like, "Really? Like, me? Like, I'm just kind of a regular Joe, dude. Like, you sure? Like, I don't have a fancy camera. Like, I don't have a massive following. Like, I don't have I'm just me, and that's what's really cool. I share that with people, listening around the fact that, like, again, faith is you don't have to know, like, not needing to know. I just suit up and show up, and it's just wild where life will take you, man. It was a really cool trip, and so I can, like you said, I could talk about so many different places I've traveled to,
I
but
know
I
it's
share that most recently because it's just another example of like just kind of being mind blown of like, how did I get here? This is crazy. Like swimming with sperm whales with Ocean Ramsey and her husband in the Caribbean, living in Bali, visiting my brother for Christmas with his newborn baby, and just like, having a good, healthy relationship. List goes on, man. It's just wild. And then I'm on a podcast with you right now, just sharing our experience, strength, and hope and love for this life today. And I did not have that when I was drinking. I promise you that, dude. My world was about this big.
that is such an important message. I loved everything you're saying, and I'm so kind of envious in a good way, jealous.
Thanks.
I promise you in a really good
Yeah,
way. Like I
yeah, I
have,
totally get it.
you
Totally
know,
get it.
but the most important part is like you don't, it doesn't happen if you don't find your sobriety, and
100%.
you have people, and again, talking about myself and, practice these principles in all our affairs. And I try to do that. I do, but I don't succeed at that all the time. But you just kind
Oh,
of
of course.
exude this, Zach, that like You are on this kind of spiritual plane. I guess a calm way is a, maybe it's not the right word to say it, but you're just on this
Yeah,
like spiritual plane. You're seeing God's green earth, every corner of it. You want to encourage and show people it, and you want to show them in a sober way. You have the
yeah.
entrepreneurial spirit. You got so much spirit, man. It's coming through here so much. And,
Thanks, bud.
I want to ask you, some people, yeah, what do you owe to your sobriety? But I feel like, you just kind of live it. Like you show up every single day and you're living it, and take it away there. How would you answer that question?
That's so kind of you to say. Really, dude. It just gave me chills and almost a tear. Like it really is. I might get emotional just answering because it just goes back to how we started. Like this is a gift, man. Like there's something about, and I'm not even talking about sobriety. I'm just talking about being born, like life. I get it. People can look at me and say, oh, well, you had this opportunity, or you grew up in a nice place, or this or that, and that's okay. I'm not going to apologize for my upbringing. We're all born the way that we're born, right? But I just recognize that this gift of life is so special. I heard this audio on Instagram. It was this reel, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was this ridiculous number of like 1 in some 100 trillion are the odds of being born or something like that. And for some
Right.
reason, it really just resonated with me. And forgive me if those numbers are off. Like,
No,
don't
yeah,
quote
it's
me on a
supposed to be
double check,
spirit.
but it's just this insane number, right? This
Right.
possibility of being alive, and also recognizing that I genuinely at times wanted to kill myself. I
Mhm.
genuinely at times prayed that I would just not wake up. I prayed that the plane would crash. I prayed that somebody would kill me because I didn't have the guts to take my own life. And the misery attached to that, not realizing or recognizing that there was ever going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, let alone what I just shared with you.
Yeah.
Sperm whale, Ocean Ramsey diving in the Caribbean. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way that makes any sense to me. And it's just truly, yeah. I mean, to say it's a gift or a blessing is robbing it of what the true adjective and the experience and the emotional energy behind it is. I don't know, man. I just really wish, and my hope and my purpose and my passion is to try to just give a little piece of that to anybody that wants to receive it. I don't go around trying to force it down anybody's throat, but anybody that wants to receive it, and is in a place to raise their hand and ask for it, or just be curious enough to experience it, because there is this beauty to life around us. There is this peace about not necessarily needing to know what comes next in any form or fashion. Tomorrow, there's this, I recognize the desire to chase the money and to want the things and the hamster wheel of life, and I'm all for it if it works, right? The white picket fence and stuff, like I think there's a lot of beauty to that. But for me, there was just this heaviness that just it makes sense of, even in my sobriety, of like, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel necessary. And when I lifted that off of me, and I decided that I was truly okay just living out of two suitcases, um, and just putting my passion and my energy towards appreciating cultures. I've been to 46 plus countries now, and most of which has been in the last few years. It just blows me away, man. It just blows me away. And most of this, Gary, came from starting like a one-way ticket with no idea where I was going. I'm like, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna do this, and it turned into going to Egypt, and then it turned into extending 6 weeks in Egypt, and then I meet people on the way, and they're like, "Have you heard about the sardine run in South Africa? Have you heard about Dubai? Have you heard about all this and that in India and whatever, right?" And then just going on down the line and just being like, wow, like everybody that I've met has led me to the next person that I've met. And well, that sounds so ridiculously boring and plain, and I
Not at
understand that.
all, man. That's where you're wrong. And not there's not an ounce of bore in what you're telling me, but keep going, man. Please.
Well, just on that line of like the simplicity of it, it can be boring to somebody listening, potentially, around like, oh, the person you met led you to the person you met. And it's like, yeah, well, of course, I go down the street, I meet somebody, and then I meet somebody, but without looking for or desiring an outcome. and just living in that space, almost like a ping pong ball, as it were, just being bounced around the world, uh, quite honestly, and letting my higher power be in control of the sticks.
That's
Like
right.
I just land where I land, and uh, shoot, for an alcoholic that needed to control a lot of things, that's wild for me to say out loud to you right now because there really is just this peace and freedom of like, okay, like I genuinely live in the moment today. Like I genuinely live where my feet are, and I find myself talking to people about that all the time of like, this is so cool. Like just for today, I am here and I'm truly happy to be here. And I don't necessarily need to be anywhere else. And that's a common misconception I think that I want to touch on too for people. A lot of
Yeah.
people say when you travel, like wherever you go, there you are. Absolutely. I buy into that 100%. And like, oh, maybe you're just trying to escape something or escape your reality. And I actually have found the opposite of like, no, man, like if you can be, or if I find myself truly being comfortable where I'm at, I'm just being given this gift of this like exponential awareness and an energetic connection with so many different cultures and people all over the Polynesian roots, the Hawaiian roots where I am now. Which has led me to Tahiti and Samoa and Fiji and all these other places because of just being aware of the Polynesian roots and the culture of Hawaii and being like, wow, like I'm really curious to learn more about this. And just hopping on a plane and recognizing that like, wow, I can do that. I can take my bags and I can go over there. And
So
and I can do a digital content job and I can do it from anywhere. And if it doesn't work out, that'll be okay too, because something else will come along. And I again, to the people that come before me, right? I know that there's people out there that are like, oh, it's easy for you to say you don't have a kid, you don't have a dog, you don't have a whatever. But I look at my friends that have come before me, including that guy I mentioned to you that introduced me to Bali, who
yeah.
had a 3-month-old daughter and sold everything and put his daughter on a kid and rigged up this little netting so she could basically bounce off the nets without getting injured while in the waves at 3 months. It's like little ocean crib, as it were. While him and his
God.
wife, sail this catamaran. And some people might say that's super irresponsible, and that's fine too. But the point is none of us are trapped where we are. We're only trapped in our mind. Like we create our own idea and our own box of like where and how we have to live. Tony Robbins actually talks about that a lot, going from one box to the next box to the next box,
Yeah.
living in our home, which is a box, getting in our car, which is a box, going to the
Right.
office, which is
I've
a
heard
box.
him. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, which box do you want to live in? Or do you want to live in a box?
Right.
And I don't know, man. I'm just really, like I said, the people that come before me, I talk a lot, but I also try to listen a lot too and just observe the world around me. And I'm always really grateful for, my recovery allowing me that opportunity to listen as well and to hear things.
That was just all of it. It was absolutely beautiful, man. It really was. I had
Thanks.
said off camera, I think, the mantra, I want this show to inspire one person. And, I say that we want it to grow and want it to inspire more than one person, but you're inspiring me right now. And I think what you
Thanks,
talk
man.
about, and I mean that bottom of my heart, you really are. And I think when you talk about, the power of now, like living, like
Yeah,
literally, like just living in today because it's all we got and it's a gift and it's beautiful and it's all it's all you need. Don't worry. All my fears, Zach, are future projections that are not a
100%.
false reality that haven't even happened. And my sponsor says it all the time. Like, and he's 10, 12 years my senior. He's like, Gary, I wasted so much time worrying about stuff that never ever happened. Don't you do that too?
Mm,
I think about those words every single day. And
mm,
just hearing how you live your life, and it's one thing how you live your life, but like I said before, you're on this beautiful, from where I'm sitting, the beautiful spiritual path, and you're just aware that your higher power is putting is like you said, ping ponging around the world, but your higher
yeah,
power is the guide. And you remind me, someone asked me just this week, what do you want? It was kind of these are questions you get these days. I get these days, but it's like, what do you want your legacy to be when you leave here? And, it dawned on me. I said, so I don't remember exactly, but it was like, I want to live a life of service, of helping others, of being a leader for people and certainly my family, and to be known, I think the words I use, be known to have a superhuman zest for living life. And
Mm,
that's what I would love to be known as. Like I have a long way to
that's
go
awesome.
to get there, but you're sitting there and you're talking. I'm like a superhuman, beautiful, zest for to live life. And I answered the question, and I also said, it dawned on me like if you had sent this back to this kid, the young me, 18 years ago, and you said that was the question and this is the answer, I would have said like, what the heck happened to me? And you're crazy,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it's just such a honestly, it's more than a gift to be able to even think that way these days because I was a skeptical, chip on my shoulder, trust no one 18 years ago. And now I sincerely I don't always succeed, but I sincerely try to lead with love these days. And
Mm,
it's another thing too, like the gift of an open mind. I didn't always have a gift. I had such a narrow, for whatever reason, in my alcoholism, in my disease, whatever. It doesn't matter why, but I everything I thought I knew, Zach, I realized I don't know anything, and so I have this gift
mm,
of mind, at least today. Again, complete 180 from where I was, 18 plus years ago. I say it a lot, and I'm 49. I'm 11 years older than you are, and I have more, ambitions and dreams than I ever had in my whole life. And I owe it all to my
It's
sobriety.
awesome.
You
That's
know,
so awesome, dude. Yeah,
you're awesome,
congrats on
man.
that.
No,
Yeah,
thank
no, that's incredible though. Like I appreciate you saying all the kind words that you did and just reflecting that back too. I hear the same thing out of you, in terms of the connectivity and just the groundedness and the appreciation.
you. Yeah.
They talk about attitude of gratitude. It's one of the first things I learned in AA.
Yes.
And again, for anyone listening that may or may not resonate with AA, no worries, but hopefully you still take home some of these points of this attitude of gratitude and a gratitude list, like 5 things you're grateful for every day, 10 things you're grateful for every day. And it just shifts that perspective from like, pour me, pour me, pour me a drink to like,
Mm.
oh, wow, like, look what I have. You know what I mean? Look at the opportunity. Look at the world around me. Look at my health. I have
Yes.
a friend of mine that literally lost his right hand, not to sound gruesome, but it was ripped off in a wakeboarding accident.
Uh,
And yeah, without going into gory details, like imagine that, right? I told him that the other day, and he kind of laughed back at me. I was like, dude, you serve as an inspiration for me, probably
yes.
far more than you realize. Like, and just the idea of being a right-handed person, living your day every day, and then all of a sudden you're wakeboarding, and all of a sudden that you never ever have that back. And now the rest of your life is one-handed, and you're having to learn how to do it left-handed. And I remember him like right out of the hospital, he started working on his left hand eye hand coordination. He started painting a model car, and with
Amazing.
I wanted to work on his fine motor movements, and I was like, dude, people just aren't like that. It's real, like naturally for you to just go right into that space of solution and right into that space of acceptance of like, this is my life. I need to get to work. I'm not going to get my hand back. So it's time to like go figure this out. And him and I just came back from a snowboarding trip. He didn't slow him down. Shoot, he gets into his boots and out of his boots faster than I do. And I was like, man, like what the hell?
Yeah.
Um,
Amazing.
but
Power
so
of the human spirit, man. Like it really,
yeah,
really is when you tap into it. There's so much there. It's something I'm learning all the time.
yeah,
There's so much
yeah.
in there for sure, man.
I share that around the attitude of gratitude and the appreciation, the humility that I hear from you as well. It's just that shift, that immediate like, okay, cool, like this happened. One of my favorite quotes is William Shakespeare: nothing is either good or bad, it's thinking that makes it so. And
Mm,
so what is my attachment to a situation? And of course there's horrific things, right? Tornadoes and molestations and all these things that, we don't have to go into detail philosophically around, but there is just that underlying element of acceptance, appreciation, gratitude, and power to those who have come before me and those that will come after me who do deal with these struggles that are greater than the ones that I've run into,
yeah.
that serve as leaders and mentors and guides to others because of their strength. And I say that to my friend all the time too. Like, dude, you are stronger than I am, man. I don't know that I could do that. I'm so grateful and appreciative to show up the way that I do today. I'll continue to try to do that as well as I ever can. But just recognizing that, from other people that go through these different challenges, and really celebrating the challenges that I have had that have led me to this space
Yeah.
today, and just being appreciative of like where I am today, which is not necessarily a millionaire or some C-suite executive or
Yeah.
whatever people think that they might want to be, and actually just being in that space of like, like, I really like just who I am today and where I am today. And I'm actually okay with all of it. Doesn't mean I don't have ambition, but it
Yeah.
just also means that like I'm okay. And I'm rooted in just my appreciation of life today, which is founded upon obviously the basis of our conversation in your podcast, sobriety and recovery. Like without that, I truly have none of this, dude. My world goes back to being this small.
And that's the message. That's the message right there. And what you said, being so comfortable in your own skin, like that's such a gift too. And the
Yeah.
acceptance prayer, I go to that acceptance prayer all the time. And there's
Mm.
sometimes when I'll be like frustrated and then I'll just take a step back and I'm like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now because that's my higher power.
100%.
And then it's okay.
100%.
And it's
Yep.
amazing. So your Instagram handle is Nomadic Addict with two T's, correct?
Two T's. You got it, buddy.
Two
Yeah,
T's.
two
We're
T's
gonna
at
put
the
it
end.
all in the show notes where everyone's gonna be able to find you and your
There
website.
you go.
The website,
Also Nomadic Addict, two
got
T's. So
two
yeah,
T's.com.
nomadicaddict.com. I put a little bit more into it recently. I'll look forward to putting more. I actually launched a YouTube recently. But again, I'll be very honest with you guys. Like this is a passion project for me. I get no funding from it. I have no ad space or nothing. So my primary jobs and gigs sort of take over. But I do genuinely love and care for the passion, the purpose that I believe I'm trying to put behind this, and my YouTube's actually the goal and the intention is to be a little bit of a blend of both, taking my not just my passion for travel and the idea of sober travel and being able to ping pong or pinball around the world, but also really taking advantage of my first master's degree, which is counseling. I
Yep.
focus on co-occurring disorders, mental health awareness, personality disorders. I've done this direct.
Yeah.
I've been an interventionist at times. I've counseled families. I've done groups. I've done case management and therapy, and so there is an element to my YouTube channel as well that I've just started of sort of what I like to call like self-reflections or mirroring, where I'm speaking to the listener, 10-15 minute message of what my hope is to be hopeful, and acknowledging some of these things that come up, like selfishness versus self-love is a topic I love to talk about.
Yes.
People, we don't know, speaking from a place of I, but and come into sobriety, like, okay, everyone says I'm selfish, I'm selfish, I'm selfish. Okay, so I must not do anything for myself because I'm so selfish, right? Well, we know that that's not going to work.
Nope.
Actually, selfishness and self-love oftentimes, and I don't know if this gets talked enough, this could be a whole other podcast, are actually go hand in hand. Like I have to be selfish, like in a form of self-love in order to give to others. I have to fill my cup up to give to other people. And I have to be able to say like, no, actually I can't go out, or I don't want to go out. I probably can do whatever I want, but I have to recognize that, or I get to recognize that that will actually do me a disservice and not allow me to be in my best headspace for others, or for the way that I want to be. And that's a self-love tactic, that people be, oh, you're being selfish. Like, well, maybe. But it's selfishness in the sense that I know I'm going to be able to show up as my best self and trust that that will lead to interactions in the future that hopefully will charge up others in the way that my higher power intends, as opposed to running around like a maniac, trying to take care of everybody. I mean, we
People
talk about
pleasing,
the
making everyone else happy, and not taking care of Zach. So important. You just said that about self-love, especially
yeah,
in our community. Like there's so many of us, myself included, sometimes we're so quick to beat ourselves up too. Like,
mm,
take a step back, like go easy on yourself. You're doing okay, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like
easy does it, man.
we tell ourselves these, or we have told ourselves these, bad stories for long, long periods of time. Like tell yourself a good story, man. Like You can, especially in our community, like you had just said. And I love your mission and what you want to do with the YouTube channel of marrying, your passions, your passion of travel, your passion of a higher power of spirituality, and passion of love and compassion, and it's trying to help people.
Yeah.
I think it's a winner. I think anything you do is gonna win. And I'm kind of laughing too
Thanks,
because
buddy.
we started, we met on DMs and Instagram. We like hit it
Yeah.
off. Like the energy
Yeah.
in the DMs is great, and now we're talking
Yeah.
and it kind
Yeah.
of it matches up, man. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you so much. I appreciate your time. I'd love to do this again. We're gonna follow you. My sister-in-law is a big
Absolutely.
traveler. She's gonna definitely be following you. So we'll shout out to her.
Nice.
And
Right
so
on, man.
we will put all your stuff on the show notes. They can find you and follow you, and I will, for one, will support you any way I can. And whenever you're back this way, I'd love to hook up with you in person too, man.
I'd love that, Gary. It really means a lot to be invited on your show and to have that time. That's the biggest gift we can offer anybody, right? Is our time. So
It's true.
so thank you for taking the time
No,
and
it's your
inviting me on
time.
the
I
show.
appreciate you for your time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like I said, I think the first time we started talking is the amazing people, Zach, that I've met in this short period of time in this, Recover Out Loud community that you're doing as well.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
incredible, and you're just
Uh,
the latest amazing person I met. So it's such a
right
pleasure to
on.
meet you, brother, and we'll stay in touch for sure.
Yeah, you as well, man. Thank you so much. I look forward to helping anyone on the show and connecting more with you more soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much, and God bless.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of the Begin Again podcast. We sincerely appreciate your time and support. We hope that today's conversation has ignited a spark within you, affirming that recovery is not only attainable, but can also be a wellspring of strength and resilience. Our ultimate goal is to make a difference in someone's life every single day. By sharing these stories of redemption, we strive to empower you and inspire you to unlock your fullest potential, facilitate positive transformations, and contribute to creating a better future for yourself, for your loved ones, and the world at large. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to our show, please share it with them. And if you resonate with our mission and feel compelled to do so, we would greatly appreciate your support through a 5-star review, following us on Instagram, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, The Begin Again Podcast. The more positive reviews we receive and the wider our message spreads, the greater our collective ability to help others realize that change is possible in their own lives. Thank you once again for being a part of our community. May you be blessed on your own journey of personal growth and transformation.